Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Exhuming the X-Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. Thank you to all of the new subscribers that we've gotten to the channel based on this show. We do read your comments and whatnot. We do record these things like way in advance, so we can't necessarily get to your comments, but we are reading them. We do appreciate them, so keep those coming. We're going to be talking tonight. I should introduce myself if you're a first-time listener. My name is Matthew. I'm joined by Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
And we're going to be talking about episode 8 of season 3, Oubliette, directed by Kim Manners, written by Charles Grant Craig. I will apologize in advance for my voice. We record a bunch of these in a row. I'm really sick, and we're on hour 3, and my voice is starting to go. So I'm going to try my best here to make it through. So, Jeremy, Oubliette, was this an episode you remembered as a kid?
It was. Yeah.
Okay, me too. So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. So kick it off. The prologue. What happens to Kaylee from Firefly?
Yeah, I was going to say, I begin my notes with, oh my God, it's Kaylee from Firefly. Getting creeped on by the photo guy at the school she's getting her pictures taken at.
So many creepy dudes this season,
Yeah,
man.
this episode was. What was that? Was it the episode last season where there was a real creeper involving like rape themes and stuff like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I got. That sort of ick is what I got out of this episode.
yeah. This episode
Not
goes
good.
dark.
Uh, he ends up getting fired because he's just staring at Kaylee. He ends up stealing her photos and he's like developing them in his basement. And he cuts a picture of herself or her out and then cuts out a picture of himself and does like early, mid 90s Photoshop where he glues the two pictures next to each other
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then he starts taking pictures, but thankfully we get out of his dungeon. Like you can see it's a trap door in his floor and there's a red light from the developing film pouring through it. We don't know what he's actually taking pictures of. He could be getting real weird with it.
could be. He says. By the way, you might be wondering if you're listening to this, like Jewel State is the actress who plays or is Kaylee from Firefly. You might be wondering, well, what's the big deal? I mean, Kaylee from Firefly. Why is this such a creeper? She had just turned 13 when she filmed this episode. Like this, she's a little kid in this episode, which is why it's even more disturbing because the guy playing the actor opposite her in this, he whoever casts these X Files episodes should have won an award because they pick the weirdest, creepiest, grossest looking dudes. And him just leering all over her in this prologue. Oh God, it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was not good. And then after taking a few pictures, he decides to work up the balls to go over to this girl's house, sneak into her bedroom, cover her mouth with his hand, and say, "Nobody is gonna spoil us," and bloody her nose real bad when he's doing it, and then kidnap her out her own bedroom window while her little sister just starts screaming into the night. Then it cuts over to this waitress at the exact same time at 10:05 p.m. She's serving up eggs or whatever weirdos buy at Waffle House that late at night, and all of a sudden, like her, they're yelling at her because she's like confused about something. Like a coworker's like, what the hell's going on with you?" And they look at her, and her nose is just pouring blood all over her uniform. Then she just falls over. And she starts whispering, "Nobody's gonna spoil us. Nobody's gonna spoil us." And it looks at her watch, and you see it's 10:05 p.m. And then we
Yeah,
get the title screen.
yeah. What'd you think of this prologue?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the better ones that X Files has. It's still, but is it good because it ooked me the fuck out? I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this a lot because this felt like okay, we're gonna get into some serious shit on this one. Like when you immediately put like a little girl like this, think about I don't know exactly if this was around the same time. It was the 90s, but what was the Jean Benet Ramsey sort of stuff? Just I don't know if it was exactly in 95 or 96 when this happened, but just that kind of stuff was in the zeitgeist of people who would come into people's houses and take their children and stuff like that. And so it's just, that's probably one of the main reasons why I remember this so much from when I was a kid, because I think that's just a natural fear of any kid. It doesn't have to be just a female, a child. It could be a male child as well. I remember just being really concerned at just certain places where I lived. Where it's like, God, what if someone could just come in and get me? Like, what would I do? And it just, you feel for this girl right away. But I was like, we're gonna get something serious here. So I actually was digging this opening.
So we cut to the next day, as we often do after a title screen, trying to figure out why Mulder just suddenly shows up at a local criminal crime scene as such. He ends up making it. I put a note in here that he walks basically all the way into the center of a crime scene completely unchallenged until a
Yeah.
detective asks him who the hell he is, and he identifies himself.
All you need to do is wear a suit with a tie, Jeremy, and they just assume you're FBI or something.
Okay, might go give this a try. So that detective leaves. Special Agent Scruff McGruff comes back to give Mulder a briefing.
A griefing.
A griefing. Scruff McGruff is what it tripped me up there, but he has this demo.
Yeah.
Only you can prevent forest fire. Like, really gruff voice. And then Scully shows up later, and I can't remember what the hell they were talking about, but she ends the conversation with, "That's spooky."
Oh yeah, she does.
And then Mulder just remarks about it, like, "Okay."
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I didn't make a note of that, but I remember it now. You pointed it out.
They go and interview the waitress because um she just happened to be saying the exact same that is why I guess that she's there, or that they're there to help out, because this waitress was saying the exact same thing that the little girl that didn't get kidnapped, her little sister, was saying. The killer was, or sorry, not the killer, but the kidnapper was saying at the time of the abduction at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And the waitress is not cooperative at all. She's like, "Just leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to help you. I'm not talking to the cops."
I wrote down all she wants is a cigarette in capital letters. Because she's like, "Can I have a cigarette?" And they just ignore her. And she's like, "I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. Just give me a cigarette." I felt bad for her.
"I know that feeling, girl." And then she mentions, like in passing, that she was a kidnapped victim too.
Yeah.
Um,
The actress, by the way, who plays this chick, I think her name's Lucy. I thought she was awesome in this. Like, I thought she was really good in this episode.
She was. We cut to the psychos on the side of the road. He's got a flat tire and he's looking at Kaylee in the trunk with that creeper smile on his face, just like, look at all this that I have. And then a tow truck pulls up and says, "Hey, you the guy down here called for a service?" He's like, "No." He shuts the trunk. Like, "Well, I'll fix that for you for $10." And he ends up like menacing him with a tire iron.
Yeah, he's like, "Leave me alone. Get out of here." The guy's like, "I'm just trying to help, man," because his tire is completely blown.
So we cut back to Scully. She's doing an investigation of the waitress's uniform. She notices that there are two different blood types all over the waitress's uniform. One of them's hers, and one of them just happens to be the blood type of Kaylee.
Yeah.
So Scully starts suspecting that there's something off, not in a supernatural Mulder way, but she pretty hard draws the line that Lucy is helping. Lucy has a direct thing with this kid's disappearance and believes that she's helping the psycho get away with it. She won't believe that she has some sort of weird connection.
Yeah, and that's one thing I did appreciate about this episode is that there is no immediate leap to a supernatural element. So even because this episode's basically a showcase for David Duchovny. This is like him, connecting with Lucy and all this stuff. This is an episode where he gets a chance to kind of act. But I like the fact that there's no immediate, oh, hey, there's a ghost or there's some sort of supernatural element. They're treating this like it's just a normal kidnapping of a little girl, which I actually really, really liked. Even though there's the weird thing of how is she bleeding and why is it at the same time? It's not like in your face about that. But Scully's like, she's suspect number one, and Mulder's like, she's not a suspect. Like from the very beginning, he's trying to convince her she's innocent, and Scully's like, "What are you talking about, dude? Like, why are you acting like this?"
So while they're investigating, the waitress is in her apartment. She's cold. She can't see. She's writhing around in her bed. She has scratches all over her face, and her boyfriend is like trying to take care of her. Um, but she's freaking out because she's basically feeling all of the things that Kaylee is feeling while sitting in this basement. She's just feeling them for her. And they even explain kind of later that she some of the wounds that Lucy ends up getting on her body, the little or Kaylee didn't have. Instead, she was actually absorbing damage and the wounds that would have been on Kaylee instead.
Yeah,
Um,
it's quite disturbing.
it is.
Like I was watching it, I'm just like, it's one of those things where it's like you watch a very serious drama about something that is very serious, right? And it just makes you feel icky, but it's like, but this is kind of how real life is a lot. They did a really good job to kind of make this feel real, even with the supernatural element to it.
Mulder offers to buy her a meal and she accepts it. And they end up going to some weird ass soup kitchen to get food. But she still won't help Mulder. And she's mean about it. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't give a fuck about this kid. I don't you find that she's just heavily damaged. That she had been kidnapped when she was younger. She was left in the dark. She was photographed just like Kaylee was, and that she still carries that trauma with her. She has had a drug problem because of it, and now she's reliving it, and she's like reacting poorly to anything that's reminding her of it.
Well,
So
don't we find out that it's been years also? Like when she was kidnapped, I don't think it was like a quick, oh,
17.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I think she had been um being assaulted, and because they don't come out and explicitly say, "Oh yeah, she was sexually assaulted," or
but
anything
they
like that.
hint at it.
Yeah, it's very sort of like, if you're paying any attention, that's kind of what happened. But from what I took from it is like she was there for years with her kidnapper, who was doing all kinds of horrible stuff to her. That's why she is so messed up. And I think Scully, it's either Scully or Mulder at one point in the episode was like, it's amazing that she's actually functional, like that she could have a job as a waitress and stuff like that. And there's a moment where Mulder grabs her or whatever to get her to stop, and she's like, "I don't like to be touched. Like I don't like." This actress played a damaged woman amazingly. She should have won an award for it.
Should have. We get back to where Kaylee is. She's in the dark, and then all of a sudden we have this really terrible scene where this red light hits her, and then a little tiny like red beam, and then all of a sudden she's just being chased around in just complete pitch dark with the camera taking pictures of her. So she just gets brief flashes of just brilliant light while she's screaming and crying and clearly not in a good place. And creeper dude is just taking pictures of her
Yeah,
in that pitch darkness.
and this works because Jewel State, great acting in
Holy
here.
smokes,
Like
man.
she did a great job acting as freaked out and panicked and stuff like that. You're just like, oh man. And obviously, I don't have kids or anything like that, but you're a father. You probably it hits you differently when you're like, Jesus Christ, what if this is one of my kids or something, and this weirdo had taken them, and just the sheer fear and terror as a child you would have if something like this is going on, and it just gets worse as the episode goes on
Yeah.
when they hint at like, oh, what what he's planning to do with her and stuff, and what he's done with other people and stuff like that. It's just oof, icky.
But thankfully, early on, they find out that this Carl guy, Carl Wade, is the creepo dude's name. They found out that he was fired from the picture shoot, and so they have a picture of the guy. They want to take a picture and show it to other people that's around, but specifically Mulder wants to take it to Lucy and see if she recognizes him. Um, Cuts back to Lucy. Wade goes off to go buy some food or something like that, and she sees a tiny pinhole of light in her basement, and she ends up pulling like all of this cloth away from a covered up window, and so maybe she can escape. Like she has these board, or she's tearing off these boards with her bare hands, and she's really on a struggle bus trying to get out of this basement. In the meantime, we cut back to Mulder. He finds Lucy. He shows a picture to Lucy, and Lucy just loses it and just runs away.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, Kaylee gets out of the window right as Carl Wade gets back and sees her feet like crawling out of the window. So they're both running away at the same time. And then somehow Kaylee gets injured and falls over, but so does Lucy as she's running away from Mulder. It
I thought
comes
that was.
back and they
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was really sad too when Mulder finds her after Lucy has fallen, and she's just crying. She's like, "Why is this happening to me? Like, why is it happening?" I felt really bad. I was like, I feel bad for everything that's going on in this episode.
it was there's no thankfully there's no like jokes. There's
Oh
no
yeah,
one
yeah.
liners in the whole thing,
They
but
play this
they
serious.
very seriously. Uh, what is it? Because or they do a DNA test on the blood on the waitress's uniform, the second blood that shows up. They find that it is Kaylee's blood, and so the cops and Scully immediately come to arrest her. She's hanging out with Mulder. Mulder's in their apartment trying to calm her down from this fall. He comes outside. They go back inside. Lucy's gone, but Scully is yelling at Mulder. It's like, "You're
Oh
too
yeah.
close to this case. This is just like your sister. She has this little girl's blood all over her. If she's not directly kidnapping Kaylee, like she's helping the killer or the creepo guy do this."
Yeah. Mulder is just like he can't. I really like how David Duchovny played everything in this. I thought this is probably one of the strongest X Files episodes we've seen him actually act, and just the compassion he's trying to show Lucy throughout this, and just like the look he gives Scully when Scully's saying like the obvious shit, where she's like, "Haven't you considered whatever?" And he just turns at her. He's like, "Of course I've considered it." It's like, why you? What do you think? I'm a fucking idiot or something like that? And I just thought he played it really, really well. And Scully kind of came across as kind of a dick to him in this whole sequence.
But she was following very clear evidence. I mean,
Oh yeah,
DNA evidence on a shirt, like it doesn't get really any clearer than that for
oh
a
yeah,
straight line person. So she was just doing what needed to be done, and she was trying to get not have her partner spin off the fucking wheel.
yeah.
So uh they cut back to Kaylee. Kaylee is begging this horrible scene where she's begging for water in the basement, and the guy is just mad that she tried to escape. Like, how dare you try to escape? And he's trying to decide what he has to do now. Like, you got away once, you're going to get away again. This has gone too far. I have to decide to do with, or you're not going to be my plaything for years like I want you to be. I have to get rid of you. Is what it feels like. But he gets her a cup of water anyway, and then she goes from being thirsty to begging for her life as he leaves the basement.
Quick question. At this point, had Lucy told Mulder that that dude was the same guy who had kidnapped her back in the day? Because there's a certain point in time because she starts telling Mulder like, this is what he does to start, but it's going to get a lot worse for this little girl, and that's where they kind of hint that there's sexual assault that this guy does and all of that stuff. And then Scully, because Scully had made a comment to Mulder at some point, because I was so engaged in this episode, I didn't really have any notes because I was just focused on the thing. But at a certain point, Scully, is trying to almost make an excuse, and she's like, "Look, it could be like a Stockholm syndrome sort of thing, and she could be working with."
Yeah.
So had that been revealed at this point yet, or is that
Mm,
later?
they start in on that, but I don't think that right in the very next scene they find her in the basement. It's just jumping a little bit ahead. The tow truck guy comes into the police and says, "Yeah, that's exactly the guy. He was weird. He threatened me with a tire iron." Points on a road map where they found him at. Said that was just like a mile or two where they found Lucy when she was a child. So they're going to pack it up and go to a small town and just start showing this guy's picture everywhere because somebody's got to know where he lives. They find the cabin. They go into the cabin. They see that somebody is like in the corner of the basement, just curled up,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
and
I remember.
they find that it's not Kaylee and it's not Carl. It's Lucy. Lucy had made her way out to this cabin and she was curled up in the corner of the basement, just having a moment.
I thought that was a
And
great setup too, because initially I was like, "Oh, they found Kaylee." I wasn't even thinking at the time that it was going to be Lucy in that corner, so I thought that was really cool for me. I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, yeah. What's going to happen after this now?" I liked it.
so that or they leave Mulder to take or they're going to arrest her right then and there. And Mulder says, "I'll take her." He takes her out to the car. He's sitting with her and they're talking. And she starts coughing and gagging. And she started, well, before a little bit before that, she starts saying, he hasn't done anything to her yet.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah. That's a spoiler.
when he has to share her, when he gets to the point where he feels like he's sharing her with other people, when he has her all to herself, everything is fine. But when other people start getting involved, that's when he starts getting mad, and that's when he starts hurting. And then she starts coughing and gagging, and they find his car to the north. The FBI and the cops are going to go after that, but Lucy's like, no, she's somewhere else. She's cold, and they know that there's a river right next to the property. And she's coughing and she's gagging while they're doing this. And Mulder's like grabbing Scully and saying, "No, they're down at the water." He just doubled back, and he's sending those people on a wild goose chase. So they make it down to the river. They find that he's like, well, he starts telling her that nobody's going to come between us, and he's holding her underneath the water while a different FBI agent is watching Lucy back at the car.
Yeah.
Lucy starts drowning in the back of that fucking car, and I was like, no!
Yeah. She's like
That
just
was wild.
hawking up water and everything like that, and just the way the actress played it, like her eyes and stuff like that. I was like, I'm actually concerned for her real life. Like, is the actress okay?
Yeah, it was brutal. They make it down to the water. They see that he's just holding onto a body that's submerged. She's not moving. They Mulder draws his pistola, says, let her go, and he doesn't. So he shoots him and shoots to kill, kills him. They get onto the water. They drag her body up to the shore. He starts performing, CPR. And Scully's a doctor. She knows when things have gone too far, and she just keeps telling him to stop. And eventually he does. And then we
Well, I
get
love
back.
that he's ignoring her. Like he
Yeah,
won't. He's so like possessed with trying to save this little girl that like she's yelling at him. She's like, "Stop, stop, stop." And this is part of the highlight of the episode, I think, is we've all, and you might have a different opinion than I do on this, so I'll be interested to hear your take on it. We have been looking throughout this series for David Duchovny to actually act. Like, when is he going to have his beyond the sea moment and stuff like that? And we always kind of like, he never quite gets there. I felt with this episode he got there. I thought multiple scenes he did a great job just showing pain, showing compassion, showing other than kind of like that stoic, kind of sarcastic Mulder vibe that people
Yeah,
know and love so much. But this one, he actually felt like he was acting.
for sure. They stop CPR and they're just hanging out with a little dead girl. And then they cut back to Lucy, and Lucy kind of gains consciousness for a moment. And you almost, the look on her face, or how really well this woman acted, you can tell that without words, she decided that she was going to die for this kid. She was going
Yeah.
to drown for this kid. And so she just drowns on dry land. They cut back to Kaylee. Kaylee coughs up a little bit of water. Scully's weirded out by it, but she comes back too. And then, she's like, I want to go home. I'm cold. And Mulder leaves. He goes to find Lucy, to find that she's on a stretcher, and that wasn't her face covered up?
Yeah. And he pulls the thing back and she's all like purple and
And he
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
he cups her. He just starts bawling. He just
Yeah.
cups her cheek, and he knows what she did, and he feels fucking terrible about it, and nobody else knows
And
the
you get that
sacrifices
great
she made.
crane shot too. It's like a
Yeah,
single take and it just pulls back up high and you just see Mulder breaking down next to this dead woman.
and that's it. That's
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a coda or something where Mulder tells Scully this is kind of, what happened and all of that, but effectively the episode ends right there on that shot. I wish it would have ended on that shot, honestly. Okay, your thoughts on Oubliette?
best of the four that we watched for this block by far.
Yeah.
It's dark as these episodes get, but one of the best of the season, easily so far.
Yeah, I loved this episode. Absolutely loved it. And I remembered it when I was a kid. I remembered this episode, but when I was a kid, I don't feel like I really, excuse me, I don't feel like I understood the impact of it. Whereas now as an adult, it just hits harder. It hits way harder than if you're like a 13-year-old kid watching it on Fox. So I really, really dug the hell out of this episode. And strangely enough, it never doesn't ever seem to come up in conversation of some of the best X Files episodes. You don't ever hear Oubliette as one,
No.
which is strange to me because the actress who plays Lucy was so fucking good. Sorry, my voice is really going here,
It's
folks.
gone.
I apologize. I'm like losing it here. Before we did this long marathon session of X Files episodes, I also did Tales from the Crypt episode thing. I did two movies with Steve, so I've been talking for like 6 hours straight on my sickness. So I'm dying. I'm dropping here, but I really, really love this episode, and I think it should be put up there was with one of the best episodes in my opinion.
One of those standalone episodes too that you could just show somebody that's never seen another episode of X Files, and it can exist as its own thing and just be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few fun facts here, if I can make it through. Series creator Chris Carter stated that Craig's original draft Lucy was more hard boiled, but actress Tracy Ellis played her as a more wounded person, which was the correct way to play it. Fox's Standards and Practices Department was uncomfortable with the screenplay because it featured a 12-year-old girl being kidnapped. The network requested that she be in her late teens and that the plot would not heavily feature Amy's ordeal or suffering. Jewel State had just turned 13 when she was cast, but the producers thought that she looked older and even applied makeup to add to that effect. This is kind of interesting. I don't think this would have worked. Like she still looked like she was 12 or 13 to me. Like I did not get the vibe that she was some 15, 16-year-old teen. Just the way that she's dressed in this and the way she has that she doesn't have like that kind of adultish demeanor or anything like that. But
Mhm.
I feel like it would have lessened the power of this if it would have been some like 16 year old teenager or something. But she did a great job. Jewel State was awesome in this as well. The reason for the concern was because the original screenplay featured similarities to the Polly Klaas case, which had received large public attention around the time of the production. Polly Klaas was a 12-year-old girl who was kidnapped during a slumber party and eventually strangled to death. The antagonist of the episode was compared to Richard Allen Davis, the culprit of that case, who was convicted and sentenced to death for his crimes. An issue arose with the filming location because the mountain had a ski lift, which needed to be avoided when composing shots. Over 1,000 prop trees had to be brought into the filming site to camouflage surroundings to give the atmosphere a remote feel, which I thought was interesting. The filming of the episode was plagued by rain and heavy weather conditions. In one example, while directing the climax, the river had risen by 4 or 5 inches, causing the crew to move to another position to shoot a week later. This cost the crew several days worth of production and a large sum of money. Shooting conditions were further complicated because shoots involving water are notably difficult, requiring a new set of costumes for each take. Because of the extensive outdoor shooting, director Kim Manners hated directing the episode, commenting, quote, "It couldn't be fucking worse," unquote. Despite a negative experience with shooting on the mountain, the episode Gethsemane from the fourth season was filmed here and had similar issues. Gillian Anderson's stand-in Bonnie Hay, who appears in a cameo, previously played a doctor in both Colony and Endgame and a nurse in DPO. Jewel State spoke positively of her co-star Michael Chieffo, who plays the weirdo, saying, quote, "I do remember the man, Michael, who played my kidnapper. He was so lovely and so concerned that I would feel scared of him, I guess, or uncomfortable around him, that he made an effort to be very sweet and warm with me, which my mom appreciated. I think my mom thought it was really classy of him," unquote. And lastly, Duchovny was particularly pleased with his work in the episode, feeling that it was amongst his best acting performances during the entire run of The X-Files. He later cited the episode as one of his favorites. And I think that's well deserved. I think he understood. He had some meat on the bone for this episode, and it was good to finally see David Duchovny like show his chops a little bit, because Gillian Anderson has gotten to show her chops in multiple episodes, so it was nice to finally do that. Any final thoughts on this one, Jeremy?
Yeah, enjoy, guys. This one was great.
Yeah. And with that, I am going to say that's all, folks, for this episode of Exhuming the X-Files. Stay tuned next week. I don't even know what the next episode is. I didn't even look. But stay tuned. Hopefully my voice will not sound like this next time we record, but we shall see. Thank you, everyone. Catch you later. Hit that like and subscribe.
Bye, everybody.